Hello and welcome. My name is Mark Blatstein, the physician founder of Physician Presents Report Service. Today I'm going to review new policies and procedures, some of which I've touched on in past YouTubes, but that will allow you to be released early, but also skipping halfway house to home confinement if you're eligible. And so these are pretty significant things that have happened pretty recently. So initially home confinement, and I'm going to go through it on the video first, and then I'm going to go through and show the documentation. The home confinement basically is for individuals who do not need don't need any structured risk support. And so this is going to be if either you're retired and you have an income stream already, if you have a job already lined up and verification of that job lined up, if you have a relative that you have to care for, if you have a home to go to that's in a safe neighborhood. And I'll go into more detail with this. Those that would require halfway house potentially have been incarcerated for a longer period of time and really haven't done anything to allow that next step to where when they're released to be able to earn employment. And so here are things to think about, and which I will go through with you. Is it how are you going to be different to your case managers and unit teams? I'm going to review everything at one pass, and then I'm going to go into it. Because the Bureau of Prison staff, they are now going to start feeling the pressure. They have to begin to pay attention to policies. This is what I'm thinking. It's not going to happen overnight, but things are happening behind the scenes, which I'm going to touch on. And they have to be able to combine First Step Act, Second Chance Act, and all of it's depending on everything that you do. Are you prepared? And there's the best time to begin making this preparation is before you get to your pre-sentence interview. But guess what? If you haven't done anything, then start yesterday. What's occurred? Several things have occurred. One is that the President Trump has already said a memo that he wants people to go into a halfway house. And so when he has appointed a new director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and that Federal Bureau of Prisons has gone ahead and sent out a memorandum last month telling everyone within the Federal Bureau of Prisons that we need to kick this into gear. Essentially, people need to go to home confinement if they really don't need to use a bed in halfway houses. And that makes all the sense in the world. It's cheaper for the Federal Bureau of Prisons. It frees up bed space for those that actually need it. Now, granted, this is an uphill, inter-staff, I don't want to say fight, but, there'll be pressures that'll be bucking that. But this already, has kind of laid down that red line. But a couple of days ago, President Trump also appointed a deputy director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, and this was a former felon whose name is Joshua Smith, who's now the deputy director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. Now, it's kind of crazy, and it's an unusual pick. And I have to say, I may not be a fan of President Trump, but this to me seems, as a very helpful thing. And so there's going to be a lot of challenges. And the challenges, are everything from infrastructure to medical, and we're going to go through that. Lastly, why did I say before the pre-sentence interview? So I'm beginning going into some detail here. The reason is that I understand it's premature for this release plan. In order for your case managers to begin to have an understanding of, they have so many people in front of them, and they're seeing, every one of us has a number in the prison system. And so how do you separate yourself out from everyone else who is going to your case manager and unit team? There has to be a way. And so the only way that I see to do that is for you to have some sort of plan in place. And you have time to, while it's premature, because nobody wants to thinking about a release plan before you're even sentenced, because you may not get sentenced, but you want to have this plan as premature as it may be. And this can start with character letters. And a character letter from someone, either it can be someone that is a friend, family, clergy, anyone who has a business, who if they're a manager of a business, they own the business, and they can say in that letter that they can hire you, be it to answer phones, to, and it can be, I mean, it may be a better job than I'm going to give an explanation of, but at minimal, answer phones, make calls, or clean tables, whatever it may be, but that they trust you, they've known you a long time, it's out of character for who you are, and that no one has a crystal ball as to where prison's going to be by the time you get released from federal prison. But as long as you, the defendant, give that individual a heads up ahead of time, that should they have something open up, they would be more than willing to offer you that position. It would be high minimum wage. They would be available, all the time for if the probation office would want to come by and make sure you're still there. They would have all the documentation available. That's a great letter for you to have. And it's a great letter for you to have on so many fronts. It's not even funny because for one, at sentencing, the judges are going to ask you no. They don't want to see you back in their courtroom. So they're going to want to know what's your plan? What, because they asked me. And this was unexpected. And I had, granted, I was a terrible client. I was probably a basket case the entire time. I just didn't believe this was happening. But the judge asked me if I had anything to say, and I didn't know what. I just didn't know he was supposed to ask. I was supposed to have a conversation with him. I looked at my lawyer. He didn't look back at me, and I apologized for taking the court's time. It wasn't the smartest thing, the smartest day of my life. But if you're able to put all of this together, it's a very big deal to the judge because the judge already sees that you're taking that first step for when you're going to turn your life around. In the prisons, once you get inside prison, the case managers, these are the people that you're going to interact with that are from the Federal Bureau of Prisons and the unit team, they're going to see this because hopefully it's part of your pre-sentence report. And as long as don't get into any trouble when you're in prison, don't use any cell phones. You do everything you're supposed to do. If you have a financial penalty with the court and you participate with the financial responsibility program and you log everything you do. I call it insurance. Everyone has car insurance, homeowners insurance. If you have from Amazon some sort of notebook that has lines on it and may have inspirational writing inside, but you log what you do every day. They're giving you classes to take for the First Step Back program classes, making a note, and you write in there every day that you take the class. Who taught it a little bit that you learned, as well as every conversation you had with correction staff. But if you keep a log that shows that you're doing constructive activities in addition to playing sports, eating food, doing your job, and you're able to show this at the meetings with your case managers, I'm not saying it's guaranteed it's going to help because nobody knows. These are human beings. But it's not going to be the majority of individuals that you're incarcerated with that are going to go to this effort because they may, on the first meeting, they may just take that paper and throw it in the trash. You may have, not all people are good, nice and good people, but you just, you kind of just try and swallow your temper. And the next time you have a meeting, you just go in with the same information copied, not the original, and it shows what you've been to these classes and you've taken these are the dates and these you've taught the classes, and you've read some books that are some sort of things that are nonfiction where you've learned something maybe about what you have an interest in, and you've kept notes about the parts of those books that you felt were of benefit to you when you're after you leave. And this is all part of this ongoing release plan, in addition to the part you can go into before you get to the pre-sentence interview, all of which I've covered in my website and all other YouTubes. But understanding your judge and what they want to learn about you is important as you prepare to get to that pre-sentence interview and then sentencing hearing, because judges understand that crimes don't happen in a vacuum and they want to know about you. And this isn't me. I'm not the genius here. But from federal judges, this one being Federal Judge Robert Scalia, once you've been criminally indicted, sentence preparation should start right away. You don't want to wait. I mean, they go on to say that they want lawyers to take a page out of their the other attorneys that defend murder cases, which ultimately go straight to trial, go straight to guilty. You don't want to wait. It's never too early. It's never too late to begin, preparing for sentencing. At best, you're not guilty. You go home and it was for nothing. But for most of us, having all this information there put down before you get in, that part of your plan, in addition to everything else I go through in other YouTubes, is a very big deal. So when you're in prison now, we have it as a going back again, how you're different from those around you. Most people may not be doing this for sure. The BOP is it's going to eventually trickle down from, from the top dog, if you will, the director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, who sent out the memo. Now you have the assistant director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons, who used to be an inmate and knows how this stuff works. This is the new Bureau of Prisons director, William Marshall, and this is the memo he sent out to all of the staff in the prisons, made it into my website, and you can see it on the initial page. Let me go back a bit. And if I pull this is my home page, come down here, and this is home confinement. So for getting home confinement, he's directing his staff to now make sure that for those who need it, get it, and that frees up bed in halfway houses. But there's a directive. Home confinement is a priority for eligible individuals who do not need or do not require structured support. So you want to make sure that in your record is that you have a home that's in a safe neighborhood. You have a family who's willing to support you, that there'll be food for you. You have baby kids that you can help watch over, or parents that you can help watch over. You have a spouse or a significant other that is in the home. You potentially have, if you approach this before the pre-sentence interview or even while you were in prison, maybe maybe you have a relative that has, or you were in a business when all of these federal charges came down on you, but that the business was not part of the charge. And it's okay to work there. I mean, let your probation officer and the case manager and all parties know, but get their okay. Don't assume anything. And the unit teams must utilize the First Step Back and Second Chance Act. They're being told they have to do this. And so I come right out here and say it. How do you demonstrate that you qualify for home confinement? I can't stress enough that if you put together a good release plan that has, and you can call me for more information, go to my website for more information. But if you have a great release plan, as premature as it may sound, and it's not going to be big at the very beginning, and it makes it into your pre-sentence report, which means you have it ready along with a lot of other information for your pre-sentence interview. That pre-sentence interview is the most important interview of your life. And the reason is because that probation officer, judges depend on them to give them what they feel is an appropriate sentencing for you, the sentence length, and placement request. And so this is a very, very big deal. This individual next, Joshua Smith, from pardoned felon to deputy director of the BOP. He was involved in drug trafficking, and he had a big pardon. This is a couple days ago, and I would say this is June of 2025, president by Trump as a deputy, and then made a deputy director. So I go into all of this years of what he's done, but he's set up a not-for-profit. He started with a for-profit type of cleaning business, aiming to keep basements of homes and businesses dry. He was able to sell it for a fair amount of money, a lot of money. But then he went in and created it, Prison Life Media, Men's Valor Flats, what I have pictures here. But essentially, he has a feel for what's going on in prisons. He was in state prison, but still, he has a feel for what is needed. The anticipated changes, sure, there's Bureau of Prisons has lots of problems. The accusation of cronyism, corruption, widespread staffing shortages, violence, and misconduct. This is an understatement. The changing culture has been ongoing and is set in their ways. Joshua Smith, new deputy director, will be running straight into this crumbling infrastructure and a medical system that on paper, it says it's supposed to provide basic care, but in reality needs a head to toe reboot, because all of the flaws were made in glaring detail evident during the COVID pandemic. I mean, that was just not very healthy. And so the OIG report is here. Let's open this up a little neater. And they just read the report, and it was pretty not good. This is a Federal Medical Center, Devon. That means that the BOP had 4 or 5 hospitals and expanded to 7. But here in this report, substantial shortages in healthcare employees and correction officers, which means that whatever nursing staff or medical staff that are available, they had to sub as correction staff, which means you're not getting seen by medical because they're walking around as guards. You're not taking First Step Back classes because teachers are subbing in as guards. It's but just that simple. And so there's staff shortages. 20% of the correctional staff were vacant. That's crazy, as well as 24% of healthcare services, 39% of psychology services. These are all, I mean, first, psychology services are mostly impacting, in addition, one-on-one care. They're also first step back classes. And so that's just nuts. Then the clinical director retired in 2024. And so the Federal Medical Center has one physician for 900 inmates. That's a lot, but there's no nurses to back him up because they're all walking guard duty, or very few nurses. Serious issues with provisional health care to its inmates, significantly staffing shortages again, the inability to provide adequate care. And let's see if I can pull out. There was a disparity between concerning healthcare practices include, actually, I can make this maybe bigger, which I forgot to do. I guess I can't. Inconsistent routine screenings of inmates over the age of 50 to prevent healthcare or cognitive impairment. Not all inmates with diabetes diagnoses were tested within the required time frame. Not all healthcare provider credential files were verified. I mean, this goes on and on. The memory disorder unit. This is the only unit in the entire country for Alzheimer's, dementia, with only 35 beds. That's crazy. Some medical inmate companions not meeting the eligibility criteria. Security issues among the institution. There were two safety security issues affecting safety of the institution, and that part of it included that not all officers completed inmate monitoring rounds. Well, that doesn't sound pretty safe to me. Staffing shortages, limited opportunities for inmates to participate in programs, which I already covered with you. And so, lastly, we're going to go on to, this does not come from me, preparing for this ahead of time. The advice that I pass on to everyone doesn't come from me as they're preparing for the pre-sentence interview and then how to act in prison. Federal Judge Scalia, don't wait to think about sentencing advocacy. Since 99% of federal criminal clients will be facing sentencing, start preparing for the case and early on. And not all your attorneys, I mean, will do that. Some attorneys practice just federal, some attorneys practice federal and state, some, death penalty cases. But you need to defend you. Even if you have a CJA attorney or a federal defender, understand that the concentration of your lawyer is going to be on the legal stuff of your case. What they're saying here is that this is the part you're responsible for. Preparing for the sentencing hearing is just part of it's your story, it's your narrative, it is how you got to this point in your life. And the first draft is usually not the draft you want to use. Patrick Schultz. It's surprising how many otherwise competent attorneys punt at the sentencing hearing. I'll raise my hand. It was my sentencing, the judge, like I said, looked at me and asked me a question I didn't know. And then Judge Mark Bennett, very importance of writing your personal narrative and including it in your pre-sentence report. These are all very, very important things. And so with that, I hope that you have found this helpful, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen today, and have a safe day. And if you're prepared or you have any questions, please do not give me a call, 240-888-7778. Thanks for listening.